Welcome, everyone. This is a live recording of a GoldMind podcast with my dear sister, Anna. And we just spent 15 minutes talking about what we wanted to talk about. And we have so many things, so many ahas and interesting moments for us to talk about that we sort of melted it down to multidimensional embodiment. Anna herself is an embodiment mentor. I am a mind body mentor. So we really do drive on a lot of the same things. I was recently on Anna's podcast, Human Becoming, and we talked about shadow work and sales. I was doing somatic sales at the time. We talked about shadow work, we talked about embodiment, we talked about so many cool things. And so we're just going to see where the conversation takes us. When we talked before we got on live, we were sharing things about the sisterhood wound. We were sharing things about community. We were sharing things about like embodied leaders and one-dimensional coaching. And I want to start off with saying that Anna and I, although the subjects that we are currently passionate about are slightly different, they really do overlap on embodiment. And both of us are committed to keeping this conversation for the good of everything, because we both feel really fiery about it at the current moment. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Yeah, I love, like, you were like, well, what kind of topics should we talk about? We're coming up with different ideas. And I was like, let me just disclose that, like, there's a lot of fire I feel about certain things. And I think that, that fire that we both feel is like the fire of transformation that's happening within us and our own evolution of leaders. And through that fire, it also kind of like burns away a lot of things that we see that we're trying to, and I don't want to say like call out, we're just trying to make sure that we do differently. And so, yeah, that fire comes from that, like, our own evolution, and then also what we think, and this is just through our own lenses, I think, of just like what we think could be addressed in the field of coaching sometimes, which, so I think that fire that we feel is both very beautiful and very intense sometimes.
Yeah, it always has to do with our own evolution, right? We want to avoid putting ourselves on any type of pedestal. And I think both of us have been doing this work long enough to we have a right to an opinion, as anybody has a right to an opinion. But I've seen, as I was sharing with Anna before the call, I've been in communities like this for like 5 or 6 years, and I've had my business for about 3 years, and I've been many people in GoldMind. And I recently, maybe we could start here, and just see what comes up. But I recently realized that I formed into a much different leader than I was in the beginning. And I liked her better in the beginning. And then I sort of got a reflection of who I was being as a leader, and it wasn't what I wanted. And it wasn't like the leaders that I enjoyed, and the leaders that like motivated me to get up and get shit done and change my life. And that created that sort of divine rage within me, like you were talking. And now I just want to talk about it. It's like when you first have a spiritual awakening, and you just like want to just talk about it all the time to anybody that will listen. And I feel like that right now. And so it's another awakening for me as well. But I'm going to bring that publicly and speak about it publicly and call people forward publicly. And so I'm assuming that sort of happened for you.
Yeah, the divine rage, the sacred rage is so real. And I think that sometimes in spirituality, we can almost, the word that wants to come through is gaslight. We can kind of gaslight ourselves and each other around like the spectrum of emotions that we're supposed to feel and what are okay. And if you are so, grounded and zen and, all those things, then certain emotions speaking to certain things sometimes can feel a little taboo. I don't know about you, but I've had multiple situations throughout my journey, and I've been on my own journey of healing, of learning, I call it a lot of different things, because like you have been many different people on this path, but I've been on this path for 10 years now, and that started with my own healing and recovery from mental health issues, from addiction issues. being really, really lost. And so, but I've had people on my own journey when I did express certain things, especially anger, rage, things that were quote unquote unbecoming, or, you know, just not the love and light rainbows. I had people say things like, wow, I thought you were spiritual, or wow, I thought you did yoga and meditated. Like, where's this coming from? And I'm like, being a human, like, so I'm at this point in my life, like very proud, very open, very willing to speak to that rage that comes through when we see things that we feel are unjust, or we feel like we see certain things that are not um, congruent with certain things. You know, we witness things, and I think that's part of you know, we were talking about the terms mystics, right? Like we both refer to ourselves as mystics. I think that's part of like this mystic healer, mentor, coach. You can plug and play words there, but part of this journey is like being a seer in certain ways and just kind of stepping back and observing a lot. And with that comes all of the different emotions, including rage. But I think that rage actually is part of embodiment too, because I don't think you can be fully embodied if you're not willing to experience the full spectrum of being a human being, regardless of what path you're on or what you call yourself or what your mission is.
Wow. So emotions is something that I've been teaching since the get-go. And you know, you reminded me that I experienced my leadership since 2012. And so I wasn't in the conscious business space. So sometimes it feels weird to say that I've been doing it that long. But as far as leadership is concerned, and my spiritual awakening was back then. And it's so interesting because, well, so I want to get to a mystic thing really quickly in a second. To get technical with it and to get sciencey with it, because the science of spirituality is something that has always been a passion of mine. And I'm really good at explaining it to a way that people understand. You talked about the spectrum of emotions, which just like gets me all giddy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the spectrum of emotions, hi, Emily. Hi. Feel free to add anything to our conversation. This is my girl, Anna. She's an embodiment mentor. She's created a lot of cool things for herself. So the spectrum of emotions, when we get down to frequency and the measurement of each emotion, because we can measure them, and the lowest emotion is going to be something of like a shame, and then like guilt, and then all of these low level emotions. And those really low emotions almost hold no energy. It almost holds nothing. Now, when we start to work our way up the emotional scale, and I'm a fan of Abraham Hicks' emotional scale, or the scale of consciousness by Hawkins, I think his name is. There's different emotional scales, but regardless, when we start to work up and look at the emotional scale as a whole, as a scientifically measured thing, we see that there's different areas, and there's like the chart is broken up into different pieces. And man, was it so freeing to me and the people that I teach. Oh, I'm sorry, we have company coming in, so you might hear that in the background. It's so freeing to me and the people that I teach to learn that these really low level emotions, or let me call them unpreferred, these really unpreferred emotions on this side, they start to raise in frequency as they're measured. So it goes from like guilt, from shame to like guilt to fear, and then it skips some, and then we get to anger on it. And anger in the scientific measurement is the first emotion that creates internal energy. It creates a go drive. That's why you want to punch the fucking wall. And I think, and I had this hypothesis come up a couple of years ago, and I think the issue with people who want to experience the plethora of human emotion, who have had an awakening, they want to be more conscious, they want to be able to experience love and abundance, is they don't allow themselves to experience the anger. And without experiencing that anger, we get dropped back down into depression, anxiety, guilt, and shame. And we actually can't move our way up to, you know, pride and joy and bliss and love. And what's really, really interesting to add on top of that is in the chakra system, the heart is the gatekeeper. And if we don't pass the heart, then we can't pass these upper emotions. And so to talk about divine rage is like, has been on my heart for a while now. And I think that it gets to be normalized, because it is a human experience, and it's a very potent and what's the word I want? It's a very potent and profoundly positive experience if we allow it to be so.
Yeah, like, well, for the fact that you called it unpreferred, I laughed, like, to myself, I was like, ah, like, the more we talk, I'm just like, I just love you so much. And like, I just feel like we're on such a similar journey, even though there is differences, like we overlap so much. And I'm just really grateful to be here. So I just wanted to express
Thanks.
that. The fact that you call it unpreferred, I always say the undesired, because it's not good or bad.
You did?
Yeah, I call it undesired. Like, oh, it's the desired or undesired emotions, right? Like, there are the emotions that we want to feel all the time. And some people like have resistance to feeling those, like, quote unquote positive emotions, right? Like, some people have,
they're scary.
yeah, like those other emotions are really scary and or just unfamiliar. And so what I was thinking about when you were talking about those like more dense emotions, it's like the dense emotions is like the descent, right? Like, that's a lot of like shadow work. And so a lot of people that have like even a hard time in that place, it's like, what are the words I want to use? Like, just like the shadow work there becomes very hard when people are unwilling to descend, to feel those emotions, or, you know, like whether it's because they want to stay up here, or because it's unfamiliar, or just because that dense place, the shadowy world, the underworld, right, becomes the familiar place. And I won't get too like far into it, but it reminds me of the Greek mythology story of Persephone and her going into being brought to the underworld and by Hades. And the story is really about how she was brought there, and instead of her like shutting down and being like, ah, here I am in this like dark, shadowy, unfamiliar, uncomfortable place, she was like, okay, well, I'm here, like, let me figure out how to like get comfortable with being uncomfortable, let me make a home here. And eventually the story goes that she's able to like leave the underworld and be on like on earth half the year, and then she's got to do shadow work half the year. And so there's this really beautiful invitation to even look at like the intentional ways that we do our shadow work and kind of make that descent, right? Because I think sometimes with this work too in leadership, and I know I feel like this is kind of like a different turn, but it's still familiar, similar to what we're talking about, is like, then when we get into the spiritual path, it's like shadow work all the time. We live in this like deep, dense place. And so I feel like sometimes that leadership also invites us to get intentional with how we do our work and when we do our work, especially as like holding space for other people. So that was coming through, and I was thinking about that, is just like, again, like that anger, that emotion does feel like that space in which like anger can invite you to take action, whether that's like making the descent and like getting angry and being like, ah, I gotta change my life, right? And like going into that world and being like, what is coming up for me, what's going on for me, what's present, or like or even, I'm done being in this place, I'm going to now allow myself, I'm going to give myself that permission to like seek those more desirable joy, bliss, happiness, fulfillment, whatever that may look like.
Yeah, so that's our first message of this conversation, is that anger gets to be okay. Anger is okay. We can utilize it to our benefit. Just like shadow work. And I think you touched on something really cool that we were talking about before. Before I get there, I think for a lot of people, I want to explain the way that I see shadow work, because I think it can be confused, and different people, it means different things to different people. I love my friend. I learned a lot of shadow work from my friend Chris, who he's Operation Moksha. I did a podcast with him like 2 years ago. It's fantastic. It's still on season 1. And he calls it shadow integration. And I love that, because it's taking it's exploring this dark, unfamiliar place in our being, and utilizing those experiences toward our vision, and supporting us in getting what we desire, and not shunning any part of ourselves. And I know for me, so I want to talk about just my experience with anger for a second, and then talk about what we talked about before the call. I know for me, anger, I was not angry. I used to have boyfriends who would like intentionally try to piss me off because I wouldn't get pissed off. And I just kind of thought like, oh, she's Shawna, like you just can't piss me off. And really like they were abusive, toxic relationships. And I had every right to be angry. But I didn't know how to be. And then I got deathly sick and I had to save my own life. And part of that, a very large and small portion of that was changing my diet from a fully standard American diet to the strictest diet, one of the strictest diets out there. It's a FODMAP diet, the strictest of them that treats something called SIBO. And oh, was I fucking angry. I would be in the kitchen and I would turn into Hulk. But because I had already started self-development work and spiritual work, and I was in the spiritual, I had my own philosophies about life. I knew that things were working out for me. I believed that. Uh, when I was in the kitchen and I would get so angry because all I wanted was this over here. I didn't want to eat this again. Just like if anybody has drastically changed their lifestyle, they might understand. But because I allowed myself to rage, and I told Adam this because I don't know what he was thinking of me. We were kind of freshly dating, and I was like, just let me rage when this happens, and it'll be over really quickly. Like, let me just like pout about it, and then it'll be done. And I would be in the kitchen, and I would go. We called it the Hulk rage. I was also on steroids at the time, but because I allowed myself to rage, I was still taking the actions of changing my life. And then because I allowed myself to rage, I got it out of me. And then it was out of me until the next meal. And then I could be happy, Shawna. And I think that if I would have pushed that down and would have been like, no, I got to be happy and love. And I would have just been in such a deeper state of suffering. I feel like you have something to say about that before I move forward.
Yeah, no, my story's really similar in the fact that I never allowed myself to feel angry, partly because on one hand I had a parent who was like very explosive with anger, very just like, just would kind of bottle it up, words are hard, and then like just explode. And then I had another parent that like, if I were to speak up or like to defend myself or to just anything, give my feedback for certain things, it was talking back. And so I always felt like I had to kind of swallow my anger on that side, and then on the other side I was like, oh, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the kind of person that says things and like hurtful things and throws things. It just was like these two really like opposites. And to me I was just like, oh, like obviously anger is not good on either spectrum. And that's very much kind of what I saw. Like that was my relationship with anger for a long time. And I also had relationships that would try to bother me or just do things and think like, oh, this is okay, like Anna is cool, she doesn't, she doesn't ever get anger. And I just I had a lot of pride in the fact that I was like, I'm like unbothered, and like anger is just not a thing. And so when a lot of events in my life happened, that led me to rock bottom, at least my first rock bottom, because I feel like I've hit rock bottom a few times in my life. It really woke me up to like how much I was holding in my body in terms of the emotions that I thought were okay and or good, and what emotions I thought were not okay and bad. And the permission that I felt like I didn't have from myself and like other people in my life, or like perceived permission, right? Of like, oh, I don't have permission to fully speak to these things, to say these things. There's going to be consequences if I say things. I was also really afraid of like hurting people. There was like very much people pleasing. So there were a lot of layers there. And I really have found, like, it was funny actually, earlier this week, I actually saw a Facebook memory from like it was 9 years ago, 9 years ago. So very early on in my journey. And like the mantra was like, I only accept love and light into my life. Like something along the lines. And I saw it and I burst out laughing because I was like, did you know, right? Like how cute, 21-year-old me, just thinking that everything outside of love and light was false and invalid. And and to be shamed or to be fixed. And that was something that to me, so I love your description of shadow work and it being that integration into, I always describe it very similarly, is like, it's really about taking a look at all aspects of your life and not feeling like you need to shame something. And it's really about claiming all aspects and holding awareness of all aspects of yourself, including those darker, undesirable parts of ourselves, whether it's jealousy, rage, anger, whether it's, like deep-seated fear, and not feeling like we have to put on a performance in our lives and act like those things aren't there, whether that's with other people or even to ourselves, or the stories that we may create around our worthiness as humans and leaders, around I think the beautiful complexity of being a human being, and being able to be like, yeah, I'm a leader and this is like what I do. And like, these are things that I deal with. Right. And like, and I think that to me, something that became very apparent to me last year was around, this is like true for me, not that it has to be true for everybody, but I'm like, in terms of leadership and just, everyone, we need less of that, false positivity, right? And we need more transparency. We need to have more of those conversations that normalize certain human experiences.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I love, this is for anybody listening. This is not where we expected to go with this, but I love it. So I wrote down a few notes. I think it's really important. I think there's an art in, I think there's an art in being in being transparent while holding empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And not, because a lot of, there's so many people who learn, and I think it's a like a beginning journey stage. I really think that everybody goes through it to where they learn that trauma is a thing and the shadow's a thing and subconscious patterns are a thing. And then they start to identify as those and speak as that person. And then with time, if they stay on that path, they'll learn how to feel empowered as they speak and then empower other people. And so I think that's where leadership, like the practice of leadership, really comes into play, because I learned from one of my first mentors. They talked about like, so if you imagine like I'm standing up, I can't really see it very well, but if you imagine I'm standing up, I'm going to have my hand down at people who are on the path below me, pulling them up. I'm going to have my hand sideways at my community next to me, who's like my friends and in that sort of intimate relationship. And then I'm going to have my hand up to my mentors. And I always learned since the very, very beginning to puke uphill. And so I get to be a human in the arms of my mentors and my friends. And then I get to be transparent and as a human, as a leader in the arms of, the people that I'm pulling through the path. And this isn't to say that my clients or the people that watch my stuff, it doesn't say that I'm superior. It is to say that there's something I have to teach in a single area that I can teach them, and look and watching the people that I'm supporting and watching future clients or whoever in my community that I'm literally like, I've been over there, let me help you over here, helps me embody myself to an even deeper practice. And you had talked about how shadow work, we get into this deep darkness, we'll get into the darkness. And I kind of think when we were talking about the lone wolf thing, I think that leads into this lone wolf mentality of like, I love shadow integration. I love it. And I'm not constantly in it.
Right. Yeah. There's the lone wolf, I think, and part of what our conversation was before this was like, there's this, I got to do this myself. And sometimes
wait, you said you had a saying. You said doing it yourself isn't doing it by yourself.
Yeah. exactly, like doing it for yourself and like getting on this path and learning, right? Like you said, and I think that it points perfectly to your point of when you start and you're just like, oh, like shadow work is a thing, like oh, there's trauma, like, oh, and I think we even had this conversation, I don't think we had it on the podcast, on my podcast, I think we had it after, around how certain things I expected to be hard in business. Like I expected certain things, like learning techie things, learning structure, strategies, all those things. I expected that stuff to be hard, but what was actually hard in the beginning of my journey of leadership in this realm, and even in the other realms that I stepped into leadership prior to like my business, was learning to manage my own energy, learning to manage my own work, because I was like in the process, we're always in the process of doing our own work. And so part of that, I think, beginning of leadership is like you're learning things. People are sparking certain things within you. You're maybe doing shadow work on yourself, right? Like you are very much in this, and it's still a beautiful space to be, and you can still lead and guide other people and speak to these things. But in the beginning, you kind of, to me, it almost is that descend. It's like the route to rise, right? Like you do descend into this space where you start doing a lot of your own work, and a lot of your shares will come with the frequency of like, I'm sharing from like being in this place. I am kind of where you are, I am one of you kind of thing, you know? And that's still a beautiful space of leadership. But then I think almost there's like this shift in leadership. And I almost think sometimes like for some people, it looks like coach to mentorship. You know, like where coaches are very much like, here are the things that work. These are the things we know, like here are the steps. And then I feel like mentorship has, not that there's not embodiment in that, but mentorship is that space of like, I'm putting my hand down, like you said, like I'm pulling you up. And in that space, it's like, I'm guiding you through a land that I've been through. Like I'm maybe I'm still in the fire a little bit, but I'm like almost to the end of it, or I'm closer to the end, and I'm telling you that it's okay because I'm over here. Like I'm again either on the other side of that, or I'm close,
like
to
whacking down the trees in
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And something that one of my mentors told me a long time ago, and I say it all the time, and I think it's so beautiful, is it's hard to be an embodied guide if you're trying to lead people through a land that you don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, then you're just like, okay, follow me, but like not sure where I'm going, but like, and that's still a beautiful space to be. That's still so valuable, but it's different than a like, this is where I've been, this is where I am now, let me pull you through this. And like you said, that's speaking in a space of being transparent and being like, this is where I've been, these are things that may still show up for me, like look what's possible, versus I'm in it and I'm speaking to it and I'm being vulnerable. And it's not better or worse, it's just different. And I think depending on who you're speaking to and who you're trying to call into your life, or like into your life in terms of like business, or actually all aspects, is just going to change, or it's going to depend on how you, or determine how you speak on your
Present.
platform, and how exactly the presenting part of it. But I love that you said like, yeah, you do in the beginning, you're like, oh, all of this, to me, this was the stuff that I was like, oh, I did not expect the descend, the process of like rooting so deep into myself. You know, I thought I was going to learn some things, you know, but I thought, not that I thought I knew it all, but I did not expect the, like, I was like, you know, and then drop into this like incredible space. And now I'm out of it, right? Like you said, you don't stay in that forever. But I think when people do that fall into that space, that's where a lot of people, I think that kind of determines, are you going to stick to this path of leadership, or are you going to decide that it's not for you?
Wow, you just gave me an image. Yeah, because people will fall in to they're going to fall in and see all the mirrors for themselves. But some people, it's the people that continue through that become the leaders. Yeah, totally. Because people will go there. And I've seen this in my own life, and I've seen this in myself, to where people will go there and they'll start that little descent. I love how you call it that. It's funny because I think you talked about Greek mythology on our last thing. And I am obsessed with ancient culture. Greek mythology is not something I am getting into it more because it's weaving into all the other ancient cultures, and it overlaps with like Egyptian mythology and all the things. But it's so funny because Greek mythology is the one thing that I'm not like super familiar with the stories. So I love that you brought that in. But sometimes we'll go into the descent and then we'll be like, nope. And then we'll come back out, and then we'll just assume our lives. And I find with the enormous amount of transformation I've taken myself through, and have seen others, multiple rounds of evidence of people who go into radical remission or change their lives in whatever capacity. I've seen it so often that it's so possible for me that it hurts me, and I feel that divine anger when I see people hopping out of it. And it's like, no, just stay a little bit longer for me, please. There's something really good here for you. Yeah.
That comes up for me a lot too. And my clients all know this about me, where like when they're hanging out on the edge of the the pool, and I'm just like, no, like you got to jump in. You can dip your toe in. You can ask other people, right? Like, well, how do I make this less scary? How do I make jumping into this pool and not really knowing how to swim, right? Like, how do I make this less scary, or how do I make the pool temperature less uncomfortable, right? And it's like, you have like, and that's the thing, like that's to me what I think of, like, you have to do this for yourself. Like, you have to jump into the pool, you have to descend, you have to like walk through that fire, or whatever. Like, we can plug and play so many different examples or analogies there, but it's like you have to jump into that pool yourself, but that doesn't mean that you have to jump into the pool by yourself. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's really, to me, like we were both just saying, is that descend is, it's scary. Looking at yourself when you have a client that comes in and they start speaking to something, and you start getting activated because you're like, oh wow, they're speaking to something that's still tender for me. How it takes embodiment to, one, like drop into, like, you're holding space for somebody else, right? And to be able to navigate that conversation, and to even maybe speak to, right, if you feel like it's honestly something you can't hold space for because it's something you're still working through, to be able to speak to that and be like, in full transparency, this is something I'm still moving through, and I'm going to hold the space as best I can without my own stuff coming into play. And I think that that's really powerful, right? And then also to like get off the call and figure out, okay, that just touched on something. What am I going to choose to do with this? Is there some support that I feel like I need here? You can also choose that it's not the time, like that's the beautiful thing too about that intentional descend, is if you are holding space for other people and you're like, okay, like make a mental note that like there's something for you to address. If not, if you're always jumping into that deep pool or doing the descend every time something activates some truth within you, like you're going to be in it all the time. And then that makes it very, very challenging to hold space. And I know for me, what has been really helpful for me, because I am such a deep feeler. And I'm personally someone who, like, I'm always like doing my own stuff, like whether it's reading something and just learning, it's part of who I am. Manifesting generator, like always doing stuff and always thinking and learning. I'm very intentional with like, okay, this time during the week, this is where I see my mentor. This is where, like you said, like I reach my hand up and or I get to like, I love that, like vomit upwards. Like, this is where I get to be like, oh, here's all my stuff, right? I get to be held. And then I can intentionally like do whatever I need to do. Always have time after to like integrate, whether that's the rest of the day. And it always looks different depending on my week. But like, then I'm not spending the rest of the week like diving into that stuff anymore. And
you have a set time to come back to that if something comes up.
Exactly. And like, it's okay if that's not the way that it is in the beginning, because that was not the way that it was for me. I was like deep in my own stuff.
Yeah.
And building my business and holding space and watching the impact that I was making, while simultaneously being in the depths of my stuff and speaking to that. And that was really impactful. A little tiring, a little exhausting, but like that was part of my descent, was like, how can I trust myself as a leader while I'm still doing this work? And if I have to take a step back and be intentional of, because something happened in my life, I went through a horrific breakup, very devastating. I made it so that I could process my stuff and then, support my clients. Like, I think I took like 2 weeks off, and I like worked that out with my clients and was like, I just need to like be in my stuff right now. And I can't hold space for you right now, and I was still very much in the beginning of my leadership. And that, I was so terrified of what that was going to look like. And my clients were going to be like, what kind of leader, mentor are you, And instead, what I got was like, thank you so much for speaking your needs. Thank you so much for honoring my time and my time with you, my investment in myself, like working with you. Thank you so much for having the awareness that like you needed to like take care of your own shit, and then come back to our time together. And so I think that we operate so much on fear of what other people are going to think and say, that we don't speak our truth. And sometimes that looks that looks messier than if we just spoke the truth.
Mm-hmm. I've been wanting to bring up the quote that I saw on your stories today, because isn't it interesting? We were just talking before this call about the right way to say what we want to say, although we're kind of went a different direction, but you put an Aristotle quote that says there's only one way to avoid criticism: do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. And it's like people are allowed to people are allowed to be expressed. They're allowed to say what they want. And so I think just even through this conversation alone, talking about that divine anger and how that's okay, and the shadow integration and how that's okay, like that helps me feel more confident in being open about what I think gets to have a new perspective. And I think that when we're also, you talked about looking at every possible moment to do shadow work, that you get triggered at, and you'll be in the abyss. You'll be in the black hole, the event horizon of the black hole. Time will stop and nothing will happen. And I like to explain it visually as, I call that, one of the things I call this is like the labyrinth of self-expression. But visually, I like to imagine that what you're talking about, we're looking for every single thing that we can integrate shadow, go into all of these things. It's like we're walking a path like we're going on a hike, and we're looking directly at the ground at our feet, and we're not looking up at anything else. And like nothing gets done. You move so slow, and eventually just going to fall and hit your face. And that can be said to be true when we're looking at is possibility and infinite possibility. Well, an infinite of possibility, nothing exists. And so then you're like walking and you're looking up at the sky, and you're also going to trip and fall on your face. And but we learn.
Yeah. And then I think that's part of the like embodiment to me, is being in your body. It's not being like cut off from source, right? It's not being it's not being disconnected from any higher realms, any higher perspectives, or anything like that. It's being in your body so that you can be rooted and also be connected. And that does include, right, like the connection to that descent, the awareness of, oh, like we all have shadows. We all have darker aspects of ourselves. We all get triggered by things. We all have anger or fears or insecurities or, traumas, experiences that we've had. And that's okay, because like that makes us human, right? And then the connection that we have to the unlimited possibilities, the just divinity, all of those things is like what makes us humans having a spiritual experience, right? And so it's like, and like you said, like when you when you were giving that analogy of like either looking down or looking up, it's like, well, when you're looking forward, like you have the ability to me, it's like, if you're looking forward and you're looking at a horizon, you can see the ground and you can see the earth. That way you have that like steady vision. And sometimes you will spend time looking upward and just in that kind of realm. And then sometimes you will be looking downward and spend some time down there. But it's important to like eventually bring your gaze back up so that you have the ability to watch where you're going and to be intentional, where you're not, like you said, like and I know this was true for me, like, and I don't think, at least I haven't heard enough leaders speak to this, is like the amount of mistakes you're gonna make along the way, and the amount of like times you're gonna say something like, that was a little bit of an overshare, or oh, I shared this thing and then I realized that there wasn't actually really a freaking point. It was just kind of a share, kind of just use my platform as a diary, like, okay, I'm just gonna trust it's for a purpose. Sometimes, you know, you get like, and then you like swing the pendulum to the other side and then like things get a little too like rigid. And part of that is like allowing yourself to swing back and forth, because I also think that as the multidimensional humans that we are, like there are times I'm like deep in my feels. And so you're going to see on my feed, you can tell in the energy that I'm in. And for me, I used to carry the belief that like I had to have like a very kind of uniform, like approach to my branding, right? Like the energy always had to be consistent, had to be congruent. Like, you know, when I remember the first time I mentioned like my period, I was like, oh wow, like I've never spoken to that. It's always been these like very tangible kind of things. And now I'm like, I give myself permission to play, right? It's like, where is my energy right now? And can I allow myself to just express myself without putting the shoulds? And like you said, there's the intention, like I'm reaching down and like the purpose is to like be of service and to help guide people. And I'm also a human. So like, how can I allow all aspects of myself to be seen and to be expressed? And I think sometimes when we're in that disembodied, I guess, disembodied, unembodied, whatever, lack of embodiment, when it comes to marketing and it comes to those things, is like where that permission isn't really there to just be. It's all the doing. It's all of the like, well, this is the strategy. This is the thing. And I don't know about other people, because I'm only in my own experience, but what I've noticed for me and many of my clients around business is that shit gets so boring and I get so burned out, and it just doesn't feel fun anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and like those restrictions around what I can and can't post doesn't make me feel embodied in what I'm speaking. And it doesn't make me feel happy in my business.
Yeah, the more it, yes, for me, I don't feel like honestly expressed, and that is what lights my fire. And to speak about a lot of directions. So I have a question for you, but I want to talk about my learning my human design for a second, because I think it leads into shadow work and leadership really well. Let me just write down my question is, okay. So I am a human design projector. I am an emotional projector. And I know not everybody's going to understand what that means. Some people are going to know exactly what it means. Projector, what an emotional projector means really, really simply is that in order for me, per the human design philosophy, in order for me to make the best decisions with the least amount of resistance to create whatever I'm creating, I get to ride my emotional wave. And so I don't want to make a decision when I actually don't want to make a decision when I'm like gung-ho in my bliss, as much as I don't want to make a decision when I'm feeling depressed and anxious. And so for me, being an emotional projector, I really get to allow myself to come to a place of neutrality before I make any large decisions. And how this intertwines with shadow work for me, because I just did a 30-day launch, showed up consistently, finished the launch, speck of burnout. And that's the first time that's ever happened to me. And that's the longest launch I've ever done.
Mhm.
And so I started utilizing this, um, my emotional projector self, and I started really paying attention to when I was making decisions and how I was making decisions. And it can feel really challenging to be in a place of feeling anxious or slightly low and not make a decision, because a lot of times that's going to be based off of scarcity. And what I found that perfectly overlays with what I've learned about shadow integration is when I was like feeling super low energy or a low side of the emotional scale, which for me that normally shows up as like super drained or just kind of like a mix of like depressed and anxious for a couple of days. uh I learned how to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And in shadow work, it's like, oh, you learn that this too shall pass, and you learn that low energy or that depression, let me just sit downstairs on the couch for a day and really enjoy the shit out of being in this low state as much as possible, and then I come out of it. And I think that and sometimes shadow work is laughing, totally, and we talked about that. But I wanted to just mention how I wanted to shine a light on how if I'm feeling depressed for a day, maybe depressed isn't the best word, but if I'm feeling off for a day, low for a day, I'm going to do my best to just nurture myself for that day and then know that it's going to be over with. And that legit can be shadow work.
Yeah. Well, like again, like the story of Persephone, right? It's like, here I am. What like what can I do here for myself? And I think that we are taught, at least a lot of us, I'm going to say everybody, but a lot of us are taught how to avoid big feelings, right? Like if you think about kids when they're upset, there's some kind of tantrum, parents, like, of course, like I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to pretend like I understand being a parent, but I what I see a lot, and this is something that we even studied in psychology, is like a lot of time a parent's like, okay, well, here, like, do you want a cookie? Or here's the iPad, here's this. And it's like, of course, the parent just wants some like peace. They're like wearing a million different hats. And like what the kid learns is like, okay, let me find something that's going to take away this emotion and this experience really quick. And that translates into us as adults. So when we are feeling these undesirable emotions, and that looks a little different for everybody, some people cannot stand fear and uncertainty. Some people cannot stand anger, right? Like anger, like we talked about, that was very much my taboo emotion. I could like thrive in anxiety because I had multiple anxiety disorders for 20 years. So like to me in that space, I'm like, oh, I'm familiar here. Like I know how to like move through this without avoiding it. I know how to like cope with this. Anger was something I had to learn in my 20s. And I wanted to find any way I could to like avoid it, to numb it, to fix it. Right. And so shadow work doesn't have to be something that you do. Shadow work is a lot of times it's being. It's like, okay, I'm here. Like I feel low, and maybe I know what it's connected to. Maybe I don't know what it's connected to, but here I am. So how am I going to take care of myself right now? How am I going to learn from the space I'm in, or just let it move through me? Yeah, like yesterday I went for a hike and it was like 7,500 feet up. It was a lot.
Saw that.
Yeah, like, and I, like most people through COVID, like was not as active as I used to be. Like, there was just a lot of stuff that I was like moving through personally. Halfway up the mountain, I had anger, and my boyfriend's like, hey babe, like, are you okay? And I just was sitting on a rock straight up, like my arms closed, and I was just like, and he's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know, but I feel really angry. And he's like, okay, that's, he's like, it's fine. He's like, movement is going to move a lot through you. And I was like,
Oh,
and I'm like, I was like, yes, actually, thank you so much for that reminder. And he's like, we haven't been super active. Like, I hear you. This feels really hard. Our minds want to tell us we can't do this. We can't handle this because it's something that we haven't done in a while, or it's something we haven't done at all. Right. And I feel like that's very much business, when like the intensity of business, whether it's, all the shadows, the emotions, like we're like, oh, I can't do this. This is too intense. Our minds are going to want to tell us to give up. you know, sometimes way before we actually get through whatever it is that we're going through, you know? And so there's always, I think, that peak, right? Where like, and it was beautiful too, because this happened right on this like kind of flat space, and it was like halfway through, but it was still like a peak, and I could see how far we had come up and how far we had to go back. And so it was this really beautiful kind of divine moment of like, yeah, this feels, even though it's not the descend, right? Like I'm technically going upwards, but like it feels like I'm descending in my body right now, and I'm moving through these emotions, and I really want to give up right now. I really want to just like go back. And I like fully broke down and cried, and it was just like me allowing that stuff to move, and we continued on to like the top. And that's the photo that you saw. It was above the clouds, and it was really like, it just, I, you know, just feels really actually divine that that happened yesterday, and now we're having this conversation today, because I sat in reflection up on top, like, wow, like I could have gone back, and that's okay. That wouldn't have been a failure. That would have just been me deciding that I didn't want to do this anymore, and that's okay. But the fact that I pushed through that, and now I'm up here, like I would have missed the magic of this view. Like I can see the whole town I live in. I'm above the clouds. Like this is epic. I have a little bit of vertigo and my ankles hurt, but like this is really epic. And I feel like that's very much the way that I describe leadership. Like, you know, you said like, if, when you were saying earlier, like, I know you want to give up, but you could just go a little bit longer. Like if you just keep pushing, you get to the other end of that. And that doesn't mean that even when you're at the top, that you're not going to experience something, right? But it's, I think that part, that stuff, right? It's like I could have descended back, but instead I like pushed through. And that to me signifies, like we said, when you're in that really awful, hard place, it's actually really beautiful, and it's that opportunity for you to decide, you know, am I going to keep going and like keep my eye on my vision, or am I going to go backwards because this feels really hard? And there's not a right or wrong decision. It's just that really is like the make it or break it moment. You know, and I think sometimes leaders talk about a lot of the magic and all the possibilities, which of course is incredibly important to show people what is possible. But how do we actually support them in integrity if we're not speaking to the like, hey, like you're gonna face some hard moments, and like you got to do it for yourself, but you're not doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculously, and I'm currently I'm playing with something around this, but I think it's ridiculously important to lay the foundation for the long game, and that's one of the emotional intelligence, emotional freedom, emotional management, emotional mastery. That's one of those things. And I have an anger story too. I got to share before we wrap up. Firstly, I want to mention the paradox of your descent helped you ascend. Like really, when we think about it, and how true is that? So all right, I am in my relationship. I am the purpose-driven half, and Adam is the health-driven half, the wellness-driven half, right? And so we can either complement each other really well, or we get like in each other's shit because we have different priorities sometimes. And movement is such a crucial part of my life, and it's something I'm constantly figuring out how to bring more of in, because it does support me, and I want to do it more. And when I do it more, and when I get in the cycle of doing it more, I feel better, but I fall out of the cycle more than I prefer. And we have this workout room. We just made it into a Zen den. It's got like workout pads. It's perfect. And we just finally, it's sort of been under construction, so we haven't been able to use it. And it finally got cleared out. And I do yoga a lot. And Adam's like, do you want to try to maybe lift some weights? And it, for whatever reason, sent me into hell. And so very short backstory, I lost all of my muscle mass like 5 years ago, all of it. I could barely walk. And I wasn't ever a weak person. I always exercised from high school. And so when I feel how weak I am, like trying to do a single push-up or trying to lift something, it creates a lot of anger in me. And I know that it's there. And I avoid it sometimes, because if him and I are working out together and there's a certain kind of push from my body that I feel like my body can't give me, I want to break shit. I want to scream. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that I'm still this weak. And he said that the other day. And I know he wants me to lift weights. And I know, like, I know it. And I was so angry and I started screaming at him. And I went into the Zen den and I blasted like workout, twerk out, bad bitch like music. And I shut the door and locked it because I didn't want his bitch ass looking at me. And I was like, I'm angry now. I'm going to work out now. And I got the weights and I grabbed the pillowcase off of my bed and I went in there and I screamed into the pillowcase. And there was this, I don't have one in here, but there's this plant holder that has like a rod in it that was in that room. And I took the rod and I started whacking the pillow and I was screaming. And I was like, I'm just going to allow myself to be so angry right now. And so I got on the ground and I started doing like presses and it got hard and I screamed again. And I was, if we didn't live in a neighborhood, Anna, I would have flipped even more shit. But because I didn't want people to think I was getting like beaten, I toned it down a bit. But let me tell you, when I got done with that, I was awake. I felt good. Adam, I thought I was going to come out and he was going to look at me like a crazy bitch. And he was like, you moved a lot of energy in there, didn't you? And I was like, I did. And like, he loved me for it. And it was so beautiful. And then we ended up going on a 17-mile bike ride, which is a long for me. And it was pushing through that too. And so how funny that we're here right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, like, which could be a whole entire other podcast, but just want to like, just wanted to highlight like how beautiful it is when men can hold the sacred rage of the feminine, right? Because we spend so much time, I think, even just generationally around, this isn't okay. Like, I can't rage, right? I can't express this. I can't like move this. And so what happens? It just gets stored in our body, you know? And I think, you know, that energy and those emotions can lead to a lot of different things that manifest in our bodies, manifest in our minds, manifest in a lot of different ways. So just yeah, like I love that because, you know, Colin, my partner, was, you know, like, yeah, movement is going to move a lot from you. I'm sitting there like tears streaming down my face and just like sweaty and just like feeling like, you know, like just a total mess and feeling so embarrassed, you know. And he's just like, all right, like, you know, and he said like, we can turn around or your invitation is to keep going. And I'm just like, like, you know, and I felt that anger too.
Because you said it, let's keep going.
Well, and it's funny too, because yeah, just the way that you were explaining about Adam, yeah, like the whole time he's like, you can do this, you can do this. And the whole time I'm like, no, I fucking can't. And I don't want to do this. And like, and I literally in my head, I was like angry at him for like cheering me on because like I had the belief that I couldn't do it. So I felt like, oh, you're telling me that I can't and you're not honoring my blah, 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 you know? And like, and then I just realized I'm like, oh no, like he's just reflecting back to me, right? That like, I have this invitation to push myself through this stuff right now, or I can go back, and either is okay. And yeah, and like, you know, when we got to the top, he was like, I'm really proud of you. And I was just like, yeah, I cried a lot. And he's like, yeah, and it was beautiful. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so yeah, just the little hand claps for the men who are really learning to hold the space for all that is the multidimensional feminine, I think. And as to me, divine isn't just the love and light, it's also the dark feminine is actually like very much of what that is. And I think a lot of that is coming to light for a lot of us, which is very, very powerful.
Yeah, it's important for me to remember that I am still learning as much as he is. So we have company and I have a pretty hard stop, but I wanted to end on a question. What do you wish that they taught you when you first decided to move into business or coaching? Like, what do you wish they would have taught you?
I think similar to what I said in the beginning of, I didn't expect the difficult, like I thought the difficulty was going to be pushing past like some fears and like different things. Like I knew I had like a fear of being seen and being heard and all of those things. So I expected that. And like I said, I thought the difficulty was going to come from learning the systems and the structures and all those things. I think what would have been really helpful was normalizing the amount of stuff that comes up in the beginning of your process, when you are stepping out, all the shadow work, all of the different things that do come up. Because I think if that was normalized, I don't think I would have, I don't think I would have felt so alone in it. Because to me, it didn't seem like anybody else was going through that. It just seemed like everybody was like, you know, I am a powerful bad bitch and I'm like doing all the things and woo, like all confidence. And they weren't sharing the fact that like before they went live, they were like sweaty palms, like wanting to throw up, or like, you know, I didn't see that. And so for me, when I was entering in communities of incredible women who were very activating, I felt like I didn't deserve a seat at the table, because I was like, oh, well, clearly I have all this unresolved shit. So who am I to be here? And I think that it would have been really, really powerful to, just be like, by the way, like, you're a bad bitch. And like, you're also allowed to cry your eyes out, like after you go live and you feel embarrassed about something you said, or when you have a launch that, you know, nobody signed up for, or a workshop or whatever, like, or somebody says something that they're like, hey, I actually don't agree with this, you know, to like really move through like the people pleasing and things like that. So I think I'm seeing more and more conversations happening around that now. But when I entered this space, I think that that would have been really, really helpful. And I think that containers that like specifically help women, men, whoever, who are like stepping into this field, who aren't prepared for that or don't have that kind of support. I think that that's really important, because I'm seeing too many people start and then like start, you know, that descent and then being like, nope, and doing like the jellyfish thing where they just like, whoop, they like go away and they're like, clearly this is not for me. And look at X, Y, and Z. They're so powerful. They're so confident. Like, I've been doing this for years. And like, I was so nervous. My stomach hurt before I came on this live with you. I know you. I know we're going to jam out. I know it's going to be great. Does that mean that I'm not anxious? No. Like, you know, and so I just think that that's kind of support is important. And lastly, I think sometimes people kind of make it as like a mindset thing. You know, it's like you're just like, it's just your mindset. You got to just fix your mindset around something. And it's like, or maybe there's a very valid trigger that is coming up for them, and writing it off as a mindset thing or just the kind of whatever approach doesn't actually help them figure out what that thing is. Because if that thing keeps coming up unresolved, like acknowledged, how long do you think that this person's going to stay in this space and deliver the magic that they have to this world? I wouldn't. You know, like, there's no way I would have been like, no, I don't want, like, how long do I want to push this really sore button without somebody telling me that, like, that it's okay that I have this sore button, and then help me figure out like what that button is and why it's there and how to like co-create with it, rather than, you know, just, I don't know,
push it down.
Yeah. Or just staying in that hamster wheel.
Oh, Anna Liljenwall is watching. Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And sometimes we can't override with the mind if it's stuck in the body, which is like a whole other conversation, because it's time to go. I want to thank you so much. Stay after I cut the live off. Actually, it'll be right here. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you on the replay. Let us know if you have any questions or comments, and we'll talk to you soon. Gotta end live.